Hi, I'm TebZAR, seriously funny. Teboho is a very passionate, very driven guy. And he's a guy who's really content with life. I personally think that South Africa is a paradise. And that makes me very, very patriotic. And I was blessed to spend 3 years with my grandfather growing up. He was the man that really had a humorous bone. So hopefully, where do you get it? It's in the genes. And some of it you gotta work at it. Played a lot of sports, soccer. At some point, like probably 10 million other boys, I thought I'd play professional soccer until my dad said, nah, I've seen this movie before. You're going to school. I went to Wits, studied accounting, and Wits was quite, a baptism of academics. I would say the standard was very high. The Wits slogan says, we give you the edge. But I guess 95% of us who've come from there, we feel like we've been kicked over the edge. I then did articles at a Jewish firm, and a bit of a culture shock because, the Jews are very penny wise, very light on expenditure, but they've got blockbuster balance sheets. So they get to do a lot. And I think that's really also informed my view. I'm very wary of conspicuous consumption. I'm all about substance. And everything you do, I think you gotta bring value before everything else to the table. I've been a finance professional for over 15 years. I spent about 6 years in the energy sector. I spent about another 6 years in the manufacturing sector. And the balance, it's predominantly been professional services across a range of industries. You can well imagine, with the type of work that we do, we use a lot of our left brain. A couple of friends and actually some family members said, you got jokes, so why don't you take them to stage? And I dared to do that. So, I remember speaking to Nikki. She runs a jazz restaurant there, an iconic place because it's been around for 30 years. So even when I was a student, we were very familiar with that place. And, hence I wanted it to be the first place to host a comedy show. We went out, we marketed the show, and we filled up the place. And we did 1 hour. And then a friend of mine said, I dare you to go bigger. The next show we had at Theatre at the Square. I remember speaking to Daphne Kuhn and saying, look, I want to do a show, but here's my profile. She said, no, let's give it a chance. And again there, we had a very good turnout. And the feedback from the crowd was very, very encouraging. And I thought, look, taking this thing slowly because I'm doing it purely out of love for being on stage and sharing stories is something, that I should maybe pursue with a bit more intention. And let's see where the journey leads us to. Sure. Yeah, that's a difficult question, but maybe equally easy to answer because, the jokes just come. I just feel like you gotta catch them when they come. I find that or maybe let me say humour, is a coping mechanism, because we as South Africans, we get to experience thriller from all angles. And on occasions, we get to experience the horror movies. And one of the things that really takes us through is humour. I've lately developed a taste for dark humour, and I just realized it's a coping mechanism, because being South African at most times is an extreme sport. Yeah, it's a comedy with intention. My story is unique. My lens to life is unique. And when you come to a TebZAR comedy show, I think you'll leave feeling like you've learned something positive, despite the challenges that we have. And secondly, I think the type of target market we're working with is decent people. So, you might just mingle, network, and, expand your horizons, given the caliber of people, that we aim to get on our seats, and pretty much come for a light experience that may touch on very sensitive topics, and topics that are generally considered maybe, taboo at times. But that's the beauty of this art. We have to venture into uncharted territory, and we got to bring a light spin to the things that drag us down. Yeah, I remember being young, being a Lempe, growing in an environment that's happy, immediate family, happy environment. I can always remember people just being around, and just laughter echoing, through the walls. But to be honest, besides those external influences, I decided that I'm going to be positive about life, and I'm going to see the good in the bad. And that decision was very, very intentional, because, like I said, in South Africa, that feeling like South Africa as a ship is sinking. Sometimes it hits very hard. And humor and positivity is kind of like, the lifeboat, that, ferries you through, those treacherous seas or oceans. So for me, to be honest, it was very deliberate. It's internally driven, but I do appreciate other comedians. Growing up like Mshefani, Leon Schuster. I do appreciate guys from very different backgrounds, and even internationally as well. They certainly had a role to play. I hope that I'll be in the long list of people that carry the flag, spreading positivity with laughs, and pretty much all of that is super intentional.